Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
Hi, I'm Paul Albright, and this is my studio. We're in Akeley, Minnesota. We're standing in front of an archway that I had come up with last year. This was the first concept from drawing to three-dimension. Once I got going on it, it's like a lot of artworks do. They kind of have a life of their own and a direction of their own, and ended up being a sunrise-sunset piece. I feel it can be used as an entrance point or a point of transfer, or a passageway is how I see it. And the sphere I've suspended tight against the surface on the lintel is just to keep things loose and at the same time keep things kind of exciting. The Shinto religion did these pieces that were along the same line as what you see here, basically, except for perhaps the fitting on the top. There were 3 Japanese people involved with the chainsaw competition over in Hackensack. The 3 of them came up to me after the event, and they were all excited for some reason, and none of them spoke English that well, and but I did get little words here and there, so I was able to go on internet and find out why they were excited, and the ideas kind of tied internationally without me even understanding or knowing that. To my knowledge, after I had done this, were used similarly in terms of my approach, an area that you would walk through, not just an archway, but perhaps from one place to the other. They did that for actually more spiritual reasons. This piece is carved with the chainsaw to about 80%. There's not a lot of hand carving on here at all, which I would like to introduce at some point, but I realize it's in the rough. And someday it would be nice to take it to the next level, which would be the hand carving. And I'd like to show you some of my hand carving. This piece I did for the fun of it. There was no commission, nothing inspired me other than the fact I've always wanted to try a panda bear. This is one piece of pine, a white pine. The shape of the particular log that I had wasn't far from this. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's where I got the idea. It was squatty. I didn't want to waste it. But the white pine is a soft wood. It's flexible in terms of what you can do with it color-wise. Obviously, it's heavy, but I tried to remedy some of that by hollowing the bottom out. It also serves as a purpose of checking. The pieces don't check or crack as often as if you move the center of the wood. And it's still opened up a little bit, but not what it would have done if I would have left it without removing the space on the bottom. 7, 8 years ago, my birthday fell on a Wednesday. I was working and I didn't want to work. I wanted to have fun, and I thought I've always wanted to convert the cylinder shape of a log into a ball. And so I actually had a ball on my birthday. And I think it took me 3 tries to get it close, which was kind of like more math than I really wanted to use, but it worked. But it was a lot of fun. And of course, the first thing I did after I made the ball, and I took it in the yard and rolled it around, just like any kid with the ball would. It took a while because the shape of a sphere or a ball or circle it crosses both lines of geometric and organic. And on top of that, do you treat it as a one surface, or do you treat it as a multiple surface? What do you do with that? And so I eventually came to this concept where I have actually both sides of the sculpture seen from one perspective. What I did is I took 2 shapes and locked them in together. And for lack of a better word, I call them a dyad. You have a continuum. You have 2 shapes that are just always in play. And so that's kind of where I went into the playfulness of it. People view these in a lot of different ways. You know, they're wrestling. The guys will say they're wrestling and the girls will say they're cuddling. Hopefully the result is more of a playful thing. This is the same principle on a smaller scale, and I like some exotic animals like the panda and tigers and such like that too. I do mostly regional animals. I'm going for a youthful look and more of a playful thing. I like the idea of mixing the Bengal with the Siberian, the color and the pattern of the paint, and really kind of play off each other, and it's a lot of fun. And it's easier to identify, you know, what's happening or going on with the forms. But every animal photograph that I did see with the tigers, there were no pattern that was identical to the next one. And so that gave me the go-ahead to invent my own, of course. I mean, I started off stealing the pattern and designs from particular tiger striping. And then after I got comfortable with how it works, of course, then it's just kind of fun just making up your own patterns. And there's hardly any right way up to put this, which I like. About 3-4 years ago, I was reading a book the night before that an artist friend, Jim Fletcher, had written. In the story, at certain points, there were little people that reside in the trees. As you wake up in the morning, you have sometimes their ideas are good, sometimes they're not. And I saw this little person sitting in a leaf, and it was proportionate to a chair. I hadn't thought much about it until I fully woke up and thinking, well, I could try that. And so I tried converting the cylinder of the log into a leaf. So about 4 tries later, came up with the leaf chair. Simple concept, but people really are warm to it. They like it visually. They like to sit in it, and I like in this particular case, I like the color. You know, I influenced the color a little bit, but this is a white cedar. It's probably about a 125-year-old tree. And so this was done out of one log. And this was done out of one piece of wood too. It was a piece of white pine that was set up on a pedestal begging for a sculptor, carver, whatever, to be to purchase it. There was a divide, you know, the fork in the tree. So this is actually right side up, as you were to look at the tree as it was. And the gap between this side of the branch and the other branch was only like about 4 to 6 inches between the two, and they were pretty much parallel to each other. And I remember the first thing I did once I had it, you know, once I had gotten it, was dig out the generations of squirrel nest, and I tapped on there with something, and it was solid in that pocket. And I knew once, if that was a solid point, I knew the wood was good from there. Then 3 years later, after drawing and turning and covering and not knowing what this would become, I actually then saw a couple deer in it. Wilson and Louise Persinger had purchased things from me before, and they had an open mind and very, very cool people to work with, because they let me go with what was unseen. And then he just smiled and said, you know, start it up. You imagine this all, you know, log. And the first cut I had to make was right in between here, because you relieve the stress between those 2 points. And another cut that took me a long time to figure out exactly where to go after I had started the form was between the ear and the face of the other one. And then as I made that cut, you could hear and feel the wood just go like that, you know, just that relief of pressure and tension. Pine doesn't do well outdoors, even preserved. And so 9 years later, and I was able to take care of it as best I could, I had to do some refinishing on it because it's starting to show its outdoor use. Did the work and said, okay, you know, now it's got to find a place indoors if you could, or, you know, more protected. And for one reason or another, You know, we even priced bronzing it at one point, and they didn't have the heart to do that because the process called for taking the legs off to make the cast. And so he struggled with this for a while, and a couple months later he said, on the condition, Paul, that you never sell this, he says, I'm going to give it back to you. So he actually gave me these back. I gave him a great deal on his next sculpture, but he gave these back to me, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. But it was not only wonderful, but it was very smart. He was a businessman. He had the foreknowledge to know that here's a piece that is available to see to someone who comes into the shop, and realize that I can step a project up if they ask me to. And sure enough, last year that very thing happened. I was able to step up a project that we call the Eagle Catcher. The piece was done out of a black walnut, and the end result was an 8-foot tall piece of black walnut. Similar to how this was structured, there were 2 branches, all pretty much just, again, one piece of wood that it was shaped into the simulation of Lakota Sioux, who would actually hide in the ground and then camouflage the area, put bait on the top, and the eagle would fly down, hop over to the bait. From there, the Native American would reach through and grab the eagle, subdue it, and take a feather and let the eagle go. It's probably the only piece I've done that I've actually had an emotional reaction to in terms of when people see the piece. They're actually moved by it when they see it. So it's been a reward for me to have had the opportunity to make it.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org. If you have segment ideas pertaining to North Central Minnesota, contact us at legacy@lptv.org. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund by the vote of the people on November 4th, 2008.